Hello, I'm Ely Percy, and today I'm going to read a short story called A Wee Bit Magic, which is a spin-off story from my novel Duck Feet. Here goes, A Wee Bit Magic. Frida Kirk has started a cult. She says it isn't a cult, but she would say that because she doesn't want folk to know she's brainwashing them. At first it was just her and Charlene and Eunice Garvey, and Eunice's pal Fiona Anderson, who's in 1F, that were in it. But then Laura McPhee and Laura McNish and loads of popular lasses joined. Even Kelly Marie Walker's been seen taking part in some of Frida's mad rituals, although I'm positive she's at it. Frida's got them all pure running about casting spells and wearing mad yin-yang earrings, all apart from Fiona, who's got a choker because she's not allowed to get her ears pierced. This morning at interval I was on my way to help Mrs. Oldhill in the Tucky when Charlene accosted me to ask did I want to go where to one of Frida's gatherings. Aye, right, I thought. So that's what we're const on in the bushes there by Tesco, in a big stupid circle holding horns now, is it? Obviously I didn't say that, but I just told her I couldn't because I'd already made arrangements with Mrs. Oldhill. Charlene snorted. I'm sure the old cow's got enough slave labour, she said, because I've just seen Wally and Chris Rice humping up 10 boxes of pickled onion monster munch for her. Oh, I said. It wasn't that I was put out or anything, because obviously I've no got the monopoly on who helps who with what. I was just surprised she never said she'd fund somebody else. Anyway, said Charlene, nodding at my arm that was still in a sling for where I'd fractured my wrist last month. You'd be some help, you would. You'd need to levitate the sweeties into the 10p mixture bags. Charlene only made the joke about the levitation because she was acting smart because she'd seen that Carrie film at the weekend about the lassie with the telekinetic powers that goes doolally and murders half her school because she was fed up getting bullied. I tried to watch it too, but I barely get past opening credits where ones in our PE class were pelting her with tampons when my dad snatched the remote control off me. That's an 18 certificate, says he. Plus nobody wants to repeat a day nightmares you had after we let you see that train spotting. Frida's thing had already started when we arrived. It was just her and Eunice plus 2 lassies whose names I wouldn't sure that were in second year that were there. Frida was standing on top of the big tree stump waving her horns about like she was conducting a bloody orchestra. Magic is all around us, she was chanting. It's in the earth we stand on. It's in the trees. It's in the air we breathe. It's everywhere we go. I couldn't help but burst into song. And if you're really magic, come on and let it show. Oh, oh. If it's not a cult, I said, then what is it? Charlene rolled her eyes. She'd managed to ignore me for most of the first half of her bubble period at art, but I knew she'd crack eventually because Frida was away at the dentist and Laura Kyle was half sick, and I was the only one left at her table she could talk to. Finally she goes, for your information, it's actually a coven. Oh, I beg your pardon, I said. So it's a coven when it's at home? I soon regretted opening my mouth though, because for the next 55 minutes I got a full-blown spiel about Wiccans and high priestesses, plus a rehash of the highlights of the time our primary 4 class did a project about the Paisley witch trials of 1697. I know I probably should have been pleased for Charlene that she'd found something she was interested in, because she's been right down in the dumps ever since she found out her ma was pregnant again and that her ma's boyfriend was moving in. I just wished it was me that could have been the one to cheer her up though, she'd a freaky Frida with her weirdo witchy pish who'd barely been out of school for 5 minutes. That said, I was impressed at how Charlene managed to remember all the stuff for primary, because usually she hates everything to do with school, apart from art, and that's mostly because she gets to constantly pervert Willie McCoy while standing at the sink beside his desk kidding on she's washing paintbrushes. If I'm honest though, my real problem was that the situation with Frida reminded me of when Laura Kyle first moved to Pride Park Primary to Kirtland Uke, because Charlene tried to latch into her and all. It happened while Charlene and the rest of her class were doing the witch project, because the one thing Charlene seems to have conveniently forgot was that I never actually did that project, because I wasn't even there, because I was off for 4.5 weeks with glandular fever. During the 4.5 weeks, Charlene went from phoning me every night and giving me a running commentary on what they were doing, to phoning me once a week, to patching me all together. If it hadn't been for the fact that Laura Kyle preferred to hang about in a group rather than with one pal, who knows how things might have ended up. Here, she goes, mind we did that trip to the Paisley Museum? The one with the 300-year anniversary exhibition for all the ones that get accused of witchcraft? Vaguely, I said. Well, did you know, she went on, Frida Kirk's descended from one of the women? I was getting right fed up by this point, and it didn't help that the bell was about to go and Miss Flynn still hadn't given us permission to pack away our materials. Charlene wasn't bothering her ass though, and she launched into another spiel about how Frida's great-great-great-great-grand auntie or whatever she was got garroted afore she was burnt at the stake. Is that right? I said. So basically she was a special witch that got a special death because being burnt alive wasn't good enough for her. Aye, said Charlene, sounds like she was some woman. And I bet you didn't know, she was the one that put the curse on the town of Paisley. The bell went and I stood up. Charlene kept talking. Aye, she said, she told all the ones standing at the Gala Green that day that the town would never prosper because of what they'd done. And I'll tell you something else, you only have to look at the Nick of Half Day shops in the piazza and know her words were banged to rights. I was late for school this morning because my stupid wrist, because everything takes longer to do when you're one-handed it. It was only 9:minute, but I got huckled off a big Mr. Heggie and took it to his office for a shuriken. Laura McNish and Kelly Marie got huckled and all because they'd been caught smoking in the bushes, and they never halted moaning all the way along the corridor about how it was all Frida's fault and how it wouldn't have happened if she just let them have a fag when they'd want it instead of giving them a big lecture on how it lowers your vibration. Laura McPhee was with them too, but she doesn't smoke because she's into all her hockey and cross country and competing for school sports. So me and her get let off with a warning, whereas McNish and Kelly Marie get a week's detention. When I finally got to Reggie, the rest of the class were just coming out, and I noticed Chris Rice wearing a yin yang earring. Do you like it, he goes? I got it done in that new hairdresser's down by the town hall. Smashing, I said. Then Laura Kyle and Bunsen came at his back pure hod and horns, and they were both wearing opposite halves of a yin yang pendant. You're having a laugh, I said to Laura. You told me Frida's cult was full of total dense jobs. Laura smirked. Kirsty, she said, you must have heard the saying, when in Rome. It wasn't until interval I found out Frida's having a party in Ardrossan Beach to celebrate her 13th birthday that she gave out invitations to all the lassies in her class apart from me. She even gave one to Nicola Buchanan, who's never done telling Frida to her face every chance she gets that she hates her and thinks she should burn in hellfire for all eternity because she's convinced all pagans are evil devil worshippers who are heavy into dancing naked in forests and sacrificing wee wains. She also invited 3 boys, Chris Rice, Bunsen and Willie McCoy. But how no? Said Charlene. I told her no. Aye, but how no? She said. Because I just don't want to, I told her. Aye, but now that Nicola says she's definitely no going, there'll be an extra seat in the minibus, she said. So I could ask for you to be my +1. Charlene, I said, I've already said I don't want to go, so can we just please drop the subject? The thing was though, I couldn't stop thinking about how I was the only one out of all our pals that hadn't even invited to Frida's party. And any time I even mentioned her name, I get this sick feeling. I don't know why it bothered me so much, because it was true, I didn't want to go. In fact, I'd rather stick my fingers in an electrical socket and spend 2 hours dancing round a maypole or whatever it was Frida and her Looney Tunes cronies would be doing. And I told Charlene as much. Why would we be dancing round a maypole in March, says Charlene. I never answered. Did you know, she said, that Frida's birthday falls in the spring equinox this year, and it's a really special day because it's about new life and new beginnings, and that it was celebrated in olden times by not just pagans, but by the Egyptians and the Greeks and all that? That was the straw that broke the camel's hump for me. Finally lost it where then. Gonna just get a bye, I shouted. Fed up hearing about Frida bloody Kirk and how magical and special she is. Charlene's mouth drapped open, and I thought her jaw was going to hit the flare. I don't want to hear any more about how her uncle's getting a minibus to take us all, I went on, or how you're going to have a barbecue and a bonfire, and how she's going to wear the white dress she's bought that's got the gold and silver stars and moons on it. And I couldn't care less if the whole of Renfrew Grammar and their granny was going to Frida's party, because I wouldn't be seen deed at it, and that's the end of it. That's how you feel, said Charlene finally. It is, I told her. There was no need to be so nasty about it though, she goes. I was only trying to help. Well, I said, I don't need your help because I don't want to go to Frida's stupid party and I don't want to be pals with the lassie and I don't want to know anything at all about anything she does. Aye, said Charlene, I got that loud and clear. I missed the bell again the day because my stupid strap broke my stupid bag and it happened right outside the stupid school, my pencil case and my jotters all fell out. I was lucky Mr. Heggie seen it and felt sorry for me, and it was practically a miracle I never got put in his late book, seeing as it was 9:10 by the time I'd sorted myself. After that, I'd athletics outside in the Resblade pitches, and it was pure Baltic, and I had to sit on the bench pure freezing my bits off. Mr. Anderson tried to cheer me up by asking me to watch the valuables box and saying I was his most trustworthy student, but I still felt miserable. Kelly Marie was sitting out in awe because she hadn't any kit, and all she did was moan about how she had another week's detention starting tomorrow and how it wasn't her fault her shorts weren't washed. She was also raging because she hadn't been invited to Frida's party either. Towards the end, Willie McCoy ended up on the bench beside us because he'd hurt his toe because Laura McNish dropped a shot pot in it. Charlene and Frida were going to the chippy at lunchtime with Bunsen and Laura Kyle, and Laura asked if I was coming, but I said no because I wasn't going to be a hypocrite. I'd have packed lunch anyway, and I was planning on sitting in the canteen myself, but I spotted Kelly Marie and the other two Lauras standing in the lunch queue, and I boot turned and went into the lassies' toilets. Then I went and hid inside a cubicle that was out of order. I stayed there for ages, just sitting in the pan with the lid down, staring at all the mentions in the toilet door, thinking about how I was swiftly running out of pals, and how maybe I'd only myself to blame. I couldn't even eat my packed lunch because my throat felt like it was closing up. Then I started greeting. I greeted for ages, only managed to stop because I heard footsteps and I didn't want anybody to find me. Right away, I knew it was Kelly Marie because of her foghorn voice. At first she was whinging about a teacher she didn't like, then she started slagging some lassie in her year. Didn't take long to work out that she'd come into the toilets to have a fag. I could smell it, and that the ones that were were Laura McPhee and Laura McNish. Took me a beat though to realise the lassie they were slagging was Frida. "You up for getting my revenge then?" said Kelly Marie. "Defo," said McNish. "I dunno," said McPhee. "Want it'll be a good laugh," went Kelly Marie. I could picture her running her hands together like a Halloween witch. "Aye, but what if we get caught knocking the fid colouring out of home ec?" said McPhee. "We're no gonna get caught," said Kelly Marie, "because we're no gonna knock the fid colouring ourselves." "Come again?" said McNish. "Mickey O'Rourke's doing it." "I see," said McPhee. "I don't," said McNish. Neither did I. But then I also didn't know why Andy would want to knock food colouring. "Why would Mickey help us?" said McNish. "He wouldn't," said Kelly Marie. "But I happen to know it was him that put the chewing gum in Miss Price's seat last week." "Classic," said McNish. "Aye," said Kelly Marie. "Stupid cow that all stuck the back of her skirt in her tights." They then started talking about water balloons and how they were going to get Frida a pure dullion at her party. Finally McPhee goes, "So you getting the train to Ardrossan or what?" "Or what?" said Kelly Marie. "Eh?" said McNish. Then Kelly Marie said, "I'm taking that wee Nicola Buckingham or whatever her name is his seats. Waste not, want not and all that." "Ha ha," said McNish. "Right," said Kelly Marie. "I'll get yous in the lassies' changing rooms at 4:30 after you've finished your hockey." "Fine," said both the Lauras. As they were all tramping out, I heard Kelly Marie going, "Stephen King ate your heart out." That's when I twigged what they were going to do, and I knew I had to stop them. It was murder trying to get Charlene to have a private conversation with me, but she agreed 5 minutes before the bell because Frida said she needed peace to write in her book of shadows, and Laura and Bunsen had gone to snog in the alcove. When I told her what I'd overheard in the toilets, I thought she was going to pass out because the colour all drained her face. "I should have known," she said. "Aye, but you couldn't possibly," I told her. "Well, obviously I'd need to have psychic powers to have known they were going to put fake pig's blood inside water balloons," she goes. "But I should have known they were up to something because the three of them kept giggling all the way through Frida's gathering this morning." "I wouldn't go blaming yourself," I said. "I'm no blaming myself," said Charlene. "I'm just concerned Frida's going to get off her trolley and turn evil at that carry." For a split second I thought she was trying to be funny, but then I realised she was deadly serious. "Charlene," I said, "Frida isn't going to turn evil." "You don't know that," says she. And then she goes, "My God, just think about all the dead bodies floating about Ardrossan Beach. Can you imagine the blood and the guts and the eyeballs pure popping out?" I said I wasn't sure there was eyeballs popping in Carrie. "Aye, well," she said, "Frida's a sequel, isn't she?" I sighed. We didn't have time for this palaver, because the bell was about to go in 2 minutes. "Look," I said, "Frida's not the sort of person that would turn evil, because she'd never do anything to hurt anyone." Couldn't believe the words that were coming out my mouth. There I was, arguing in favour of a lassie I didn't even like, who'd accidentally stole not just my best pal, but all my pals. Frida's whole belief system is about doing no harm, I went on. "That's what you're always telling me anyway." "I suppose," said Charlene, "but she's going to be gutted when she finds out." "Maybe she doesn't have to find out," I said. "Eh?" said Charlene. "I've got an idea," I told her. I was about to say we needed to get a team together to pull it off though, when Willie McCoy hobbled round the corner, followed by Chris Rice, followed by the two lovebirds. The bell went right after that, then Frida marched up and asked if she could have a word. I owe you an apology, she goes, because I've just found this at the bottom of my bag. She held out a crumpled envelope with silver stars and moons in it. All the way through Maths 5th period, I couldn't stop thinking about our plan. It was a risky one to say the least, because it involved stealing a set of keys of a PE teacher, making copies of the keys, and locking at least 3 folk in the lassies' changing rooms. Wally had also pointed out that we'd probably get suspended or worse if we got caught. But it didn't seem like there was any alternative. And the 6 years were all agreed that there was no way we could let Kelly Marie and Laura's ruin Frida's birthday. I also couldn't stop thinking about Frida's last minute invitation. I was now 100% certain she'd genuinely misplaced my invite, and I felt bad for implying she'd deliberately left me out. Ended up asking out to the toilet halfway through the class so as I could use the payphone in the reception and phone my ma to ask about going to the party. I was sure she'd say no, seeing as it was a school night and short notice, but it turned out she was delighted, because apparently Frida's ma had been in my dad's class at school. When it came to executing our plan, I had the pure shakes, and as soon as me and Charlene walked into the games hall, I had to sit down on the bench before I fell down. "We're here to watch the football," I told Mr. Anderson. "Aye," said Charlene. "I'm thinking about trying out for the team next term." "Is that right?" he said. I thought we'd blown it then, because Charlene's constantly got a different excuse to get out of PE. Then he goes, "More likely it's a boy you're trying out for." Willie McCoy appeared then. He'd been to see the nurse and was now walking with 2 crutches. "Sorry," he said. "Great," said Mr. Anderson. "1 player down and no reserves." This was Laura Kyle's cue. "I'm a reserve," she said. "Magic," said Mr. Anderson, although I'm pretty sure he couldn't mind who she was, because she only went to the trials to get Boonson's attention. The next phase involved me getting my hands in the valuables box, and Boonson and Chris distracting Mr. Anderson so that Charlene could lift his keys out it and take them down to YPA Moore to get copies made before returning the original ones without him noticing. That went miraculously well. The finale was locking the 3 idiots in the changing rooms. That was the bit that nearly ended in disaster, because Miss Gillis held McPhee back till 20 to 5, and we had to meet Frida and her uncle at 1:45. We just made it with the skin of our teeth. I did feel bad about locking the rest of the hockey team in with them. Still, I found out later that they were only trapped for 10 minutes. Long enough for Kelly Marie and the Lauras to miss the minibus. Frida's party was great. I didn't think it'd be my cup of tea, but I fair enjoyed making the spring bouquets and painting eggs. No sure right enough, but the bit where we had to sing a song is thank the sunshine for coming out. Frida's uncle brought us a picnic with pizza pockets and pasta salad, and he heat up hot cross buns in his camping stove. And afterwards he pulled out his ancient ghetto blaster. Everybody apart from me and Wally were all up dancing. "How's your foot?" I said, as we sat there side by side in our deck chairs. "Louting," Wally replied. Then he asked me how my wrist was, and I told him it was getting better. We ended up sitting talking for the best part of an hour, just for 2 cells, which was nice, because things had been weird between us ever since he asked me out on Valentine's Day and I said no. I found out Willie wasn't working the Turkey at all, and that Mrs. Alta had been asking for me that day when I did the show. He also said he'd paid Mickey O'Rourke a $5 to lie in wait outside PE and then fling water balloons at Kelly Marie and the Lauras. "You're terrible," I told him. "Karma," he said. I started to get a bit chilly then, and Willie took off his coat and draped it in my shoulders. "Thanks," I said, and then a firework went weakening over our heads and burst into a million sparks. And just for a second I thought he was going to kiss me. And just for a second I thought it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if he did. And then Charlene jumped out from behind us and shouted, "What he's up to?" And the moment was gone. Then Frida appeared like the Pied Piper with the rest of our guests at her back. "It's time to set our intentions for the coming year," she goes. And then she explained what she actually wanted was for us to write down 12 months worth of wishes and throw them into the bonfire. "I'll get a miss," I said. "Don't be a killjoy," said Charlene. "Aye," said Wally, pure sniggering at me. Everybody started chanting, "Kirsty, Kirsty." "Fine," I said, rolling my eyes. I suppose we all need a wee bit of magic in our life sometimes.